So what's next for Cuba and its northern neighbor? Fernando Menendez has spent years studying Cuba's economy, political history, and ties to the United States. He's a senior fellow for strategic initiatives at the Center for a Secure Free Society. Welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
Quite an introduction. Tell us, this is no big surprise. Mr. Trump talked about this on the campaign trail. What are your thoughts and reaction?
I think it's very interesting because it's a combination of things. He didn't close down diplomatic relations. He didn't take back the embassy, so he has moved in that direction somewhat. But in some respects, it's a return to the status quo ante, prior to the Obama engagement policy, if you will. He's tweaked a little bit, but this is not fundamentally a break with that policy.
He says the U.S. will not lift sanctions unless they release all the political prisoners, and Cuba respects the Cuban rights of freedom of expression, assembly. What's the likelihood of this? Not very likely.
The Cuban government is not prepared to make those kinds of changes. It hasn't been prepared to make those kinds of changes under the previous policy, which is a tougher one. The question is how to crack this nut. You know, how to figure out, as Trump has articulated, how to make a better deal than the previous deal that was made under the Obama administration.
Is that possible? And what would be some of the compromises that might get them back to an agreement at the table?
Well, for a start, one of the changes that he articulated was to prevent doing business with the Cuban military. And the Cuban military has overall control of the tourism industry, which is where the real source of income is coming for the country. So that could have an effect. You know, they may sit up and take notice to that possibility, because they thought they were going to get Americans to come in and begin investing and begin conducting business. But if that restriction is imposed, they're going to have to think again.
He's calling for the legalization of all political parties, free and internationally supervised elections. Are these initiatives that really could not come to fruition until Raul has long left office?
It'll have to be even more than Raul. There'll have to be a fundamental change in the political system. What he has called for is what has traditionally always been called for. You know, a freedom of speech, freedom of the press, free unions and political parties, elections that would take place. And this is what has always been on the table. The question has always been whether we've had the leverage and the power to make it happen. And so far, the Cubans have not relented, have not given up on that, have not been open to that kind of a change. Things may be a little bit different given that Cuba's options are not going to be as plentiful as they were under the Obama administration and its possibilities.
So how is this step back going to affect people in Cuba in their daily lives?
Fundamentally, we're not really going to see much because we haven't seen substantial changes in the last 2 to 3 years. The lives of Cubans have not necessarily gotten better. I think as we talked last time, you know, economic conditions have gotten tighter and worse for more and more people. So there hasn't been some overnight improvement in the lives of Cubans. And this in itself will not change anything for the better or for the worse.
Okay. Fernando Menendez, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.